think that's really important to the future of space, that we welcome all talents, space capabilities, space exploration, space advancement is technologically complex. And it requires more than what any individual, any independent company, or any one nation can accomplish on its own. It requires precision. It requires reliable systems and, frankly, with my background, human trust in those systems. And the more we welcome and participate across this amazing space nation, space community, the more that we build trust and that the more that we can achieve. And I think that's an imperative for our future as a globe, that we continue to develop space. I don't think space is a luxury. I think it's a necessity.
Hey SpaceWatchers, this is Space Café Radio, your channel about trends, awesome events, and interesting people in the space sector. This year, we attended the 39th Space Symposium in Colorado Springs in April. The Space Symposium is organized by the Space Foundation. Earlier this year, the Space Foundation appointed a new CEO, Dr. Heather Pringle. Her busy agenda and our full production planning at the symposium did not offer us the opportunity for an on-site interview. But we stayed in touch, and so the opportunity for a remote recording came along. Prior to joining Space Foundation in July 2023, Heather served as a Commander and Technology Executive Officer of the Air Force Research Laboratory, headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, in the rank of a Major General. Her responsibilities included formulating a comprehensive technology portfolio that anticipated future warfare needs for the U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Space Force, while promoting risk-taking and problem-solving across a unique and talented team. She holds a degree in human factors from the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and a doctorate in engineering psychology from the University of Illinois. I'm Thorsten Kriening, publisher of SpaceWatch.Global. Lean back and enjoy this episode. Heather, how are you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Thorsten. Thanks for having me. Yes, doing great. We had a very successful symposium this year, and I'm looking forward to discussing that with you.
Talking about the 39th symposium, what it was this year, can you give us a short recap now after 5 weeks and being back in the office after these wonderful days in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, in reflecting back, it was my first opportunity in the seat as CEO to see the magic of the team and what they did to produce and partner with the Broadmoor on such an incredible event. It was so magical. It was great to have a high level of participation. We had well over 12,000 participants, and that's a record for us as well. And of course, the international presence was higher than it's ever been. We had over 60 countries represented from the spacefaring nations, which is so exciting. We had robust national security, civil space, commercial space. The exhibit hall had well over 250 exhibitors. It was just amazing to have so many and so diverse participants there. And it was just really fun to see. Every day was a new adventure. And we're really looking forward to next year as well, which is our 40th.
Absolutely. Talking about participation, you said over 12,000 attendees. Do you have an idea how many international participations were that, maybe in percentage or in numbers?
I actually don't, but let me just answer that a different way to give you a flavor for how many and the diversity of international representation. Mm-hmm. So we had 24 heads of agency from international communities. So if you think about it, we had Japan, we had ESA, we had Canada. And so we're representing the entire globe, which is really exciting at the highest levels of participation. And we had some first-timers, which is also exciting and important to opening the doors to more and more participants in the space community. For example, some of our first-time participants were Thailand. We had the African Union, even the director of UNOSA, Miss Artie. This was her first visit to Symposium in her tenure. It did represent, not only did we have civil international represented, but we also had international military from over 24 countries as well, which is a unique aspect of Symposium.
Talking about Artie Holomani, the UN Director General, we opened our reporting from the event with an interview with her in front of this breathtaking landscape. So that was our start into the absolute amazing week. Tell me, that was your first symposium, as you mentioned before, and you stepped in as a CEO of the Space Foundation. So can you talk about your transition from being an active top-level military into a non-for-profit organization and then into this huge event? I think it's still one of the biggest space events worldwide, if I'm not mistaken. I think IAF is trying to keep up now with Milan.
What I would say is we partner with the IAF and we have close relationships. In fact, our VP for International Relations, Mr. Steve Eisenhart, is on the board of the IAF, and former director Pascal Ehrenfreund is on our board. So it's a very close relationship, and that will continue, as I see. But I'll say that although the 39th symposium was my first as CEO, I've been to several in the past in my prior capacity. I was a scientist in the military, as you mentioned, and that's really where I came to appreciate how technology underpins our prosperity as a nation and as a globe. And so the technologies of space have always been fascinating for me, as well as the people side, the people who engage in space capabilities. I just absolutely love the space community and how proactive, idealistic, forward-thinking they are, and so passionate about making a difference. It's been a very easy transition. I felt very welcomed. I felt like I've belonged, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And I have to say, a big part of that is my team right here in Colorado Springs as well.
How did you make your own transition into this new role? So how did you prepare it yourself for that, even with the experience of the Space Symposium? What is just one element of the work of the Space Foundation, I assume?
That's a really good point. So a nonprofit is not the same as military service. Continuous learning is a major part of it. I am leveraging skills that the military developed in me, things like leadership and planning and management, etc. But there are other elements of being part of a nonprofit team that I've had to learn, as well as reconnecting with the whole of the space community, including international, including civil, and expanding my network. So that's an important part of it as well. And I imagine that I will continue learning my entire tenure, whatever that is. It's important to always advance and adapt to whatever changes are going on in the community. And that's my personal journey as well as our organizational one.
Let's stay for a moment more on the Space Symposium. What were your highlights and your takeaways from the symposium? And maybe also the learnings, what to improve next year. And to give you a bit more time to think about it, my personal highlight was the announcement of the US and Japan for having the first Japanese on the moon in the light of the Artemis missions. As sad as it is for us as Europeans or Germans, it is, I think for humanity, it's a wonderful sign. And also having Japan as a partner for the lunar rover in the team for Artemis. So that was for me my highlight. And we had the chance then also to interview the CEO of iSpace on that. So that was a wonderful experience. But now over to you, to your highlights.
I would say that is certainly a highlight with the Japan-US announcement for Artemis 3. Of course, that comes on the heels of a Canadian participating in Artemis 2. as well as next year, we're going to celebrate 25 years of an International Space Station. It truly is hard for me to narrow it down of all the highlights across all the different things that happened at Symposium, big and small. Of course, we had the New Zealand Minister of Space. We had the Australian ambassador to the United States participating. And as I mentioned, the new countries. It's just what struck me as a highlight is the diversity of participation, the range of participation. And I have to say, actually, I think I do have a highlight. It would be going on Saturday before Symposium officially kicks off and seeing the SGAC, which is in partnership with our IAF, right? And going to Fusion Forum. And so here we have handpicked, cream of the crop, young professionals who are learning about space, who are contributing to the future of space. And boy, they are excited, they're passionate, they ask really tough questions, and they're propelling us forward. So a highlight for me is that the future is in great hands, and I want that to continue. And that's what I see as an important role of Space Foundation is ensuring that pipeline of the workforce for the space community is robust, is talented, and never ending.
Absolutely. After the symposium is before the symposium, as you have, not anymore 365 days, but more or less 300-ish for the next one. And that will be the 40th, and you mentioned it before. And 40th anniversary of the Space Symposium, 21st anniversary of ISS, as you mentioned before. What can we expect on that very special edition?
Oh,
Some spoiler.
So it is our 40th, and we are already starting that planning now. And I don't want to let all the surprises out of the bag just yet. But what I'll say is that it starts with listening to our customers, and we're doing surveys with the participants across all elements of the space community, across our exhibitors, our speakers, our attendees, and we're consolidating that and using that to improve the experience when folks show up in Colorado Springs. We are working on delivering value, not just April and not just Colorado Springs, but enhancing the space community every day of the year, as well as throughout the United States and around the globe as well through partnerships. So we're really expanding our presence and impact, and we want to get to measurable impact. So as we look forward to the 40th, I would say folks can expect more exciting participation by all elements of the space community. That's our hallmark: national security, civil space, commercial space, as well as offering opportunities to the new generation and young professionals, to entrepreneurs, and more.
So what I can hear is that the 40s will be very special, right?
It will. And I should mention that we want to highlight where we started as a nonprofit. So if you think back 40 years ago, the foundation was created in 1983, but the first symposium occurred in 1984. And it was called the National Space Symposium. So it had a very U.S. focus. And I talked to one of the founders, and he said, you only had 10 people signed up for this first symposium. And so he talked to one of our local military bases, the commanders, and he said, can you get any of your military members to show up in civilian clothes so we have a full audience? And I love that story, but it just shows the humble beginnings that we had. And then right around 20 years into having National Space Symposium, my predecessors and some of the original members of our organization had the foresight and the knowledge to be more inclusive. And so National was dropped from the Space Symposium, and we started opening the doors to a more international participation. And so that has been an amazing transformation for our organization and for the symposium itself. And in fact, we see continued growth and international interest and participation, and highlighting that change and that journey that we've been on will be another element that we will showcase at the 40th.
I just can second that. I think the event you created as it is now is one of the most important space events that we can find globally, and also one of the most exciting one. Let's talk about one thing we touched upon earlier, workforce development. You have been part of the creation of the SpaceWorks 2030 initiative, and that was a huge topic. We interviewed in her previous position Melanie Strickling as well in one of our podcasts, and she talked about and that's what I remember from this podcast, the greatest leadership program of the world that she could enjoy to participate. That was the US Air Force one. Maybe something that you share, but let's talk about how the Space Foundation contribute to the workforce development in this initiative or on its own.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that, because strengthening the workforce pipeline is a critical need that the space community has. So it makes perfect sense that the Space Foundation would be a part of this initiative. So I want to backtrack just a little bit that the Space Workforce 2030 initiative started 2 years ago. It was announced at Space Symposium, and this was the vision of Steve Ozakowicz, who is CEO of aerospace. And what he wanted to do was make a difference for the future workforce and grow the talent. And so that's been something that they've been ushering for 2 years. And it's been so successful that he wanted to partner with an organization that shared the values and shared the vision of what they were trying to accomplish. It made sense for Space Foundation to partner with them because of the alignment of the 3 pillars that Space Workforce 2030 has. They have inspire, prepare, and employ. Inspire is all about growing talent from K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade, and getting them excited about space, connecting with them emotionally, and see themselves as space participants in the future and not being intimidated, but just lowering the barriers so that they felt welcome and that they felt they were capable and able to do it. And that's something that Space Foundation has been a part of for many years. And the initiatives that we already have as part of our foundation, we're partnering with Space Workforce 2030 to infuse those and grow that part of the pipeline. On the prepare side, they have a national space intern program, which has really blossomed. This is an opportunity where young professionals who have interests in being employed in the space community can sign up, post their resumes, and it's basically an online forum for them to leverage. And so that's an area where we can facilitate and help because, of course, we have a number of professional organizations as well as industry members who want to pull from that amazing, talented pool and then ultimately employ. So again, the Inspire, Prepare, and Employ, the whole pipeline makes perfect sense. And so our partnership with aerospace is going well. We have Mel Strickland as part of our team. She's doing phenomenal work. She has a vision to grow this space workforce pipeline and include more companies into it. And we're here to help achieve that vision.
Sounds fantastic. And it leads perfectly to my last question. When SpaceWatch.Global was at the Space Symposium this year, we had a theme that we tried to apply to all our interviews and the reports we have done. And that was, what can the world, what can Europe learn from the space nation USA? What is your perspective on that? And What would you like to offer the world, what we could learn from the US as a space nation?
I like that question. I think of the United States as a great melting pot, just as a country, right, where so many are welcome. We value diversity. We value all talents. We welcome all countries. So if you were to ask me about the space nation, the U.S. space nation, it has a similar flavor. And I think that's really important to the future of space, that we welcome all talents, space capabilities, space exploration, space advancement is technologically complex. And it requires more than what any individual, any independent company, or any one nation can accomplish on its own. It requires precision. It requires reliable systems. And frankly, with my background, human trust in those systems. And the more we welcome and participate across this amazing space nation, space community, the more that we build trust and that the more that we can achieve. And I think that's an imperative for our future as a globe, that we continue to develop space. I don't think space is a luxury. I think it's a necessity. And the advancement of the space community is one that we want to achieve and one that we hope and really want to make a difference for the community.
Dr. Heather Pringle, thank you very much for your time and for this fantastic interview.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, Thorsten, and I look forward to seeing you next year at Symposium.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
If you have further questions, reach out to us at radio@SpaceWatch.Global. If you like these or other episodes of Space Café Radio, leave us a rating on your preferred podcast platform. It is the currency of today. And if you want to stay on the pulse of the space industry, please visit our website at www.SpaceWatch.Global and subscribe to our newsletters. And of course, don't forget to become a Space Watcher. I'm Thorsten Triening, publisher at SpaceWatch.Global, your independent perspective on space.